Hello everybody, in today's video we are tracking a Thanksgiving Day storm potential across the Ohio Valley, followed by Arctic air across the eastern half of the United States. All this and more next at the Weather Farm. Hello everybody, welcome to the Weather Farm. This is your Monday morning. This is your forecast for your Thanksgiving week, and hopefully you have a short week, whether it's school or work. You get to spend some time with family later this week. But we do have some systems that we want you to be aware of as we get into that Thanksgiving holiday, and then the weather as you travel home. All are coming up here. So for our Monday morning, we see an area of low pressure making its way across the upper Great Lakes from Illinois, bringing rain across parts of Illinois and Indiana, while parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota can see 1 to 3 inches of snow. Along the west coast, we see more precipitation moving onshore with the next system, again bringing coastal rains and mountain snows to those areas. And across the eastern half, east of the Appalachians, we're under calm conditions under the influence of high pressure, both to our north and to our south, starting off our work week very nicely. As we move into our Tuesday, we see that precipitation continue to move into Utah and Colorado, bringing mountain snow and even to the lower elevations. That system that was in the upper Great Lakes is now moving into Ontario. It's intensifying a little bit, bringing heavier snow to parts of Ontario, while ahead of, down and south of it, it's bringing heavier amounts of rain. Again, rain should be light, about 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch. We even have an indication of some ice mixing in with this system on our Tuesday. As we move into our Monday, we see that area of high pressure and ridging that was in place most of the weekend. It's moving east. Behind it, we have a short wave trough that's moving its way across the Great Lakes. It's going to bring that snow to parts of Ontario. And we're going to see mainly a zonal pattern for most of this week, with a couple short wave troughs making their way across the northern Great Lakes on our Wednesday, and another one across Colorado into our Thursday. We do look to see a system making a development somewhere in the Tennessee Valley on our Thanksgiving, but the main thing is going to be the persistent trough across the eastern half of the United States, which is going to allow colder air to move into the area. And out west, we're going to see the ridging, especially over the Pacific Ocean, and that ridge of high pressure is going to move onshore as we make our way into our Thanksgiving weekend, bringing warmer than normal conditions to the western half of the United States, while the eastern half is under the influence of that deep trough, bringing colder than normal temperatures to the area. In terms of precipitation, as I mentioned, it's going to be a pretty light week. This is through our Thanksgiving morning. So the system that moved out of the Great Lakes on our Monday into Tuesday into the northeast, generally 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 an inch, up into parts of Canada, into Ontario, where the snow is going to be a little bit heavier as that system intensifies. We could see liquid precipitation of around 1 inch. And out west, as that system moves onto the shore, again, 1 inch around the coast. In the higher elevations, we're going to see that higher mountain snow. So putting our map into motion, that system on our Monday kicks out into Ontario for Tuesday. We look out west, the snows are flying across Utah and Colorado. We're going to watch this area of low pressure here. This is what the GFS model is hinting could move out into the plains on our Wednesday, and we could see a low pressure system forming somewhere around the Tennessee Valley on our Thanksgiving morning. Now, the GFS model is a little further south with it than the European model. The European model is a little more aggressive and wants to have a major winter storm for the Great Lakes into the northeast on our Thursday into Friday. We still have a few days to monitor this, but the main point is to stay tuned here at the Weather Farm for any changes to our forecast. Taking a look at our temperatures for our Monday, we see generally seasonal temperatures across most of the United States, the exception being where that ridge is moving east that brought the seasonable and nice weather across the Central Plains over the weekend. It's starting to move a little bit east, so these temperatures may be a little bit above normal. We start to see some teens making their way across the northern plains. Same thing on our Tuesday. Temperatures are generally seasonal from north to south across the United States for this time of year. The exception being across parts of northern Montana and the North Dakota, where temperatures are going to be about 5 or 10 degrees below the seasonal average. Wednesday is that ever important travel day for a lot of people, and we really don't expect a lot of severe weather. Parts of Texas, you're going to be in the mid 80s for your Wednesday as we move into that Thanksgiving holiday. And for our Thanksgiving day, again, we see generally normal temperatures. This again is a pattern of that zonal flow that we're going to see from west to east this week. There's no real large troughs or ridges in place across the United States for the first few days of the work week. And it's not until after we get past Thanksgiving that we start to see this Arctic air making its way out of Canada into the northern plains. As we look at our weather for Sunday, December 1st, as people are traveling home after the Thanksgiving weekend, we see an area of some snow showers, some lake effect snow showers in northern Indiana, across parts of northern Wisconsin and northern Michigan, and even in western New York, we could see some lake effect. But for the majority of the country, we see pretty calm conditions, no real precipitation or storms that would delay any travel plans that you might have. And our temperatures on Sunday are generally going to be cooler as we see that Arctic air starting to make its way across North Dakota. Temperatures could not get above 0 here. We're going to see teens as far south as Des Moines and Iowa, and even across the Ohio Valley. Some temperatures will struggle to get above freezing on our Sunday. Again, this is due to the fact that we're going to have this intrusion of Arctic air to start meteorological winter, which starts on December the 1st. The Climate Prediction Center also has issued their 8 to 14 day outlook centered on that first week of December. And for the plains and mainly east of the Mississippi, we are expecting below normal temperatures for that first full week of December, whereas the western half of the United States is going to experience above normal temperatures. In terms of precipitation, most of the country is going to experience below normal precipitation for the first full week of December. In this map, I want to show you, this is a mapping of the West Pacific Oscillation. And if you remember from last week's video, we talked about the West Pacific Oscillation. And what this is the measurement of the abnormally high air pressure area across the northern Pacific Ocean between Alaska and Russia. So when that high pressure ridging builds and is very strong, we see negative WPO values. And so we start to see this as we talked about. We're starting to see this, and it's the green line that we're looking at. That's the ensemble mean of the European model. And the other values are the ranges. So the bars in the gray are where likelihood of 25 to 75% probability of the value happening, and then the little hash marks are from 5 to 95% of likelihood of the event occurring. And so we see with the WPO on this ensemble mean, we see that it remains negative through the first 10 days of December. And it is about the middle of December that we start to see the WPO start to trend maybe in a positive direction. Now granted, as you get out 2 weeks, 3 weeks out from today, a lot can change and this value can fluctuate. That's why we start to see the larger ranges. We believe that for the first 10 days of December, we will see a WPO negative situation, meaning high ridge, high pressure above the North Pacific between Alaska and Russia. Now and what this means is that it will allow colder than normal air to spill into the eastern half of the United States. It will send the storm track, bringing cold and snowy conditions to the eastern half of the United States. The one thing that could come into play that could combat this is the Arctic Oscillation. And the Arctic Oscillation is the measurement that determines how much of the Arctic air and the polar vortex, how much of it stays up at those Arctic latitudes. And so when we see a negative value in the Arctic Oscillation, that means that it's allowing the Arctic air to seep further south into the northern hemisphere, into places like the United States, into Europe. When it goes positive, we see that the Arctic air tends to stay bottled up in those polar regions. above the Arctic Circle. So when we have a period of WPO negative and Arctic oscillation negative, that is when we definitely will see the colder weather across the United States, the stormier conditions across the eastern half of the United States. The west region, western half of the United States will be above normal temperature-wise because they'll be ridging out in that part due to the WPO. But whenever we start to see this Arctic oscillation trending positive, and we are still in a negative WPO, what this means is that we kind of have a battle going on between the two air masses. And generally, what we'll see is that there'll be a less severe Arctic outbreak or colder air moving down into the lower 48 than normal, and we will see a less stormier pattern. So when this Arctic oscillation goes positive and the WPO is negative, that's when we see this cold tempering. So we could see that sometime between the 6th and the 11th, we could see the cold outbreaks across the eastern half of the United States starting to temper just a little bit. And so we're going to put our map into motion here. This is the 850 millibar temperature anomaly. So this is just about a couple thousand feet above the surface, and this is the air that would mix down into the lower levels of the atmosphere. And we see that through the first few days of December, we see colder than normal temperatures. We see ridging across the west. A little bit tries to move east, but it's quickly replaced with another burst of Arctic air. And that's what we see through the first 10 days. As warming tries to build east, it's quickly replaced by Arctic outbreak. And so we're going to continue to monitor the WPO and the AO. We're going to see how the forecasts change over the next couple of weeks. And that will give us an indication of what kind of December that we will be seeing across the United States. We hope you've enjoyed your time here at the Weather Farm. Do check back later this week. We will have updates on that potential Ohio Valley storm. We'll see exactly where the development has happened, where the weather is going to set up. Will it be severe weather across the southeast? Will there be snow for the Great Lakes? Stay tuned and have a great day.